Um, Golly, welcome, welcome, welcome. So nice to see you all. First of all, y'all, we're in March, so happy Women's History Month. Happy almost International Women's Day. Very excited to be celebrating those things with all of you who are the most powerful and generous women I know. The Impact 100 community is just overflowing with those women that you just want to be near. You want to be their friend. You want to know what they know. You want to just like hang out. And so I'm really glad that we all get to hang out together today. Um, it is so before we again launch in, we still have people popping in, so I'm excited. Let them keep on coming. One announcement I want to make sure that y'all are aware of. We are in the process of launching a brand new program, and it's called the Global Ambassador Program. Now, for those of you who were at the conference in October, we teased this out, told you that this was one new program that was coming. But the Ambassador Program is an opportunity for each chapter to select one representative who serves on your board. Now, it's critically important that the representative is on your board. The reason for that is we are going to be exchanging information between your chapter and Impact 100 Global. For example, we will share with ambassadors when we have new programs or new opportunities, new assets, material in the materials library. And we want the information that we share with your ambassador to go directly to your leadership team so that you can implement them or distribute them, share them in your newsletter, depending obviously on what that information looks like. We also want to make sure that we really understand your chapter. And so we're going to be asking the ambassadors to give us information like, you know, when's your membership cutoff? What does your grant calendar look like? Do you do newsletters? Do you give away how many focus areas do you fund? Those sorts of questions. Why are we asking for that question? Because here at Global, we are constantly being asked, and it's even reflective in these questions that have come through in a chapter chat. They'll say they'll ask things like, how many chapters do LOIs versus a straight grant application? Well, we're hoping that this ambassador program is going to give us more information so that we can answer that better than we do now, because what we say now is somewhat anecdotal. Well, I know these do, and I know these don't, and I estimate it's this percent. And so the ambassador program will be rolling out. There was an email that went out from me to your leadership team. If you are on the leadership team and you don't know about the email, ping us. I will send you another one, or talk to whoever answers your main email box for your board leaders. But we think it's going to be a really terrific program and a very light lift for your ambassador. We're only planning on meeting quarterly. And so it's not like we're giving your ambassador a whole nother job on top of her board role and all the other roles that we know we play. So look for that. Welcome, welcome. Happy March. And if you can figure out how to change your name to include your board or your chapter name, that would be helpful. Up in the right-hand corner, those three little dots, you hit rename and you add your chapter. All right. We have a lot of questions. It's interesting. I can tell that the seasons are changing because our last several chapter chats, we're relentlessly focused on membership. And this is our first chapter chat where there are only a couple of questions on membership. So we are going to start with the category that got the most questions, and that is broadly leadership. So there were lots of questions about leadership. Um, and I'm going to say one of the most simple but very powerful questions was talking about time management for a president. And my heart just grows because any one of you who has served as a president or is currently serving as a president of your leadership team, this is a very big role. For many, it is the best, most exciting, most worthwhile thing you can do. That was certainly true for me. But there's no shortage of opportunities for you to jump in with both feet. And so I think time management for president is awful lot like time management for anybody else. You've got to surround yourself with people on your leadership team that are empowered to do the role that they're assigned to, and that are accountable in the sense that they submit their reports in a regular, timely fashion. When they say they're going to do something, they do it, and you don't have to stay on top of them. A lot of presidents, however, and this is especially true on a founding board, but it can be true at any age and stage, they feel like they have to have their finger in absolutely every single leadership, every role around the board table. And so I would say, I would caution you on being everywhere all the time for your own sanity, for your own time management, but also so that your leaders will actually step up and be leaders. If they believe that the president is going to help them finish it, get it across the finish line or do those things, then you're building a much bigger role for yourself than you should have. I am not a poster child for time management. I spend way too much time working than I do doing anything else. Partially because there's always more work to do. I've got emails. In fact, there are people on this call who I owe an email response to. So I will say, I see you. I know that I owe you, and I promise I will get to it. And I apologize for making you wait. But oftentimes within the Impact 100 world, and certainly at Global, there are demands on our time are more than what we think we can do. But you've got to take time for yourself. You've got to do some stress management things, whether that's exercise or meditation or both, or yoga, or maybe it's playing pickleball, or it's doing jigsaw puzzles, or it's playing mahjong with a group of women, or going out on a date with your significant other where you don't talk about this kind of thing. So that's going to be really critically important. We gave some good wellness strategies when we were at our global conference together in October. Does anybody else have any tips or tricks to managing their time as a president, or frankly, as a board member? I know that this group will be hungry for new ideas. You can either raise your hand or wave at me if you've got your camera on. Okay, y'all say, that's all I know about time management. Okay.
I'll interject one thing that
Thank you.
I try to remember, is I think sometimes in the role of president, it can be very overwhelming with how many different things need to be done at one time, and a little bit, hard to know where to start. But I think it's very important to think about what is the next right step, what is the next right task, not how do I do them all, but what is the next thing I need to accomplish based on where you are in the calendar or where you are in your priorities. But try to focus on one or two things at a time and not the whole to-do list that spans the entire year.
Great advice. Very good. All right. Um, and so, and again, these are in no particular order, but how do chapters handle leadership development? So leadership development in this context is both training your incoming leaders as well as, kind of having a nomination, a bench of potential board members. And what I would say is leadership development begins with getting the right people around the board table. Board culture is critically important. We all know that when you're on a board of an Impact 100 chapter, there's no shortage of things to do. I am a very firm believer in many hands make light work. And so by that, I mean an ideal board size is 23, 25 people. Now, I am looking at many of you who operate with a very small board. Small, not by the world's definition, but small by Impact 100 standards. We've got people who have 9 or 12 members on their leadership team, and they do just fine. The reason that I like a lot of people on the board is because you can go a little bit deeper. The other thing that I've learned is that if you have co-chairs, you can divide some of the work. So for example, if you have co-chairs of member recruitment, somebody might be busy doing public facing things. They're going out and they're talking at the Rotary Club or Junior League or Zonta, and they're spreading the word. And the other one is reaching out one-on-one, is hosting these smaller gatherings to spread the word and invite people to join. One person could do all of those things, but you're going to be limited in your reach. The great examples are in multiple chapters where you've got co-chairs, even tri-chairs, and that makes the job easier for everybody. It does, however, demand better, really best-in-class communication and accountability. Where it backfires to have a co-chair or tri-chair is when, they might say, well, gosh, Sally and I are both co-chairs. I'd rather go do this other thing. So you go to the board this month and represent us, and I'll go to the board next month and represent us. That's not what this is meant to do. Your board members should all be prepared to attend all of your board meetings, because too many important things happen there, but they can break the work down to make it a little bit easier. When we start to take tasks and divide them up, it also makes it easier for you to find a replacement. Founding boards especially have a lot of women who are like, they can do 12 things, and so they're being asked to do 12 things in their board. And when you say, can you bring in somebody to replace me? It's like, we need 5 people to replace you because you've done so many things. And so always be thinking about strengthening your bench of potential board members. You do this by looking at those members who might be serving on a committee, who might be a volunteer, who might have an amazing day job, and you think, how do I not know this woman? She's got this great day job, which brings all these skills to the table. I want to meet her. She might not even be a member yet. Like, I want to see if she'll join as a member, but she might be a fast track to the board based on what she brings to the table. That's one of the really cool things about Impact 100 is a lot of nonprofits, they sort of have this, you've got to serve here and you got to do this and you got to do that before you can be considered for leadership. We're much more direct than that. And sometimes there might be a woman or a group of women and you think, they're ideal. First, I need to tell them what Impact is. Hopefully it resonates and they want to join. And then you start building your bench, or you get them to serve on a committee or another volunteer capacity. Chapter chats. are great ways for leadership development, but the most important tool we have in our toolbox is Impact 100 Academy. And the Academy has courses that you all can take. It is both auditory and there's some reading. There are quizzes. There's a whole materials library. So I'm going to answer another questions. Do we have job descriptions? Yes, we do. Course 7 has job descriptions for your board. But there's leadership training, there's marketing and communications training, there's membership training, there's events training, and it is deep and wide. The way that we have that set up, every single one on your leadership team should have access through Global Connect. And if Haley or Lori, if you want to put the link in the chat, thank you, of how you can request a login. If for some reason you don't have a login, please follow that link and put your information in. We will make sure that you get access. It's all free of charge, and it gives you a lot of really worthwhile information. I'm going to pause. Anybody have anything to add in terms of leadership development? Okay. Joni, did you have something?
I was just going to expand a little on the co-chair thing. In Northwest Florida, we really caught on to that idea, and the idea being that maybe one person is the chair and the co-chair is learning all the ropes, so that when the chair rolls off the board, there's not this sudden vacancy and no one knows who's doing what or what they're supposed to do. I think that's that sometimes happens because we don't ever think about the fact that once we roll off the board, if we haven't quantified it or taught it to anyone, then someone else has to figure it all out all over again. And the inertia of doing that, it takes too much energy and time. So.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a great point. Absolutely. You are training your replacement while she's helping you do the work. So I think that's excellent. Hi, Jody. No, so good to see you.
Good to see you. Long-time listener, first-time speaker. I would follow up on that comment as we kind of do everything in threes, 1 year to kind of observe, 1 year to actively chair, and then a third year to mentor then for those things that maybe hadn't come up previously or historically wasn't documented. So yeah, that way you only have 1 full year of having the full brunt of responsibility.
Excellent. Yes, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Great input, y'all. Staying on the topic of leadership, there were questions about being a treasurer and, what did chapters do with regards to spending? Is there an amount that's needs to be approved from the board? So financial best practices, you always want checks and balances. So no one should be able to make an expenditure without approval. And I would say in most cases it's of any amount. But so let's say you're the events chair and you've submitted your report to the board that it says you're getting ready for your big reveal. And, as you're getting ready to plan the big reveal, you're going to learn what the budget is and you're going to learn what you're allowed to spend or when we get a sponsorship in and so forth. So there really is not a lot of independence when it comes to spending. And so most expenditures, once you've been around for a while and we always spend about this much money for this event, or we always do it in a certain way. We use the same vendor, so we let them give a quote, or whatever it may be. But when you're starting out, or even if you're new to the role, double check and make sure, because you're typically, the way the model works, most chapters don't have a big pot of available cash to spend. And so it is for that reason and many others that we have these checks and balances all along the way and communication so that there are no surprises. Anybody want to weigh in on that? Okay. Awesome. Now let's see. So we've covered all of those things. Oh, and if you're new to being treasurer, I will also say there's a lot about financial stewardship in the academy as well. So please do make sure that you go in and check those things out. There are some policies and best practices in our materials library, as well as some content in the academy courses. And then the final question under the realm of leadership is, if you're getting ready to do your first strategic plan, what are the elements that you should be concerned with, and how do you go about doing this? There are many chapters who go through the process of doing a strategic plan. It can change, and in some cases it may not be a formalized strategic plan. Very often the strategic planning takes place at your board retreat. Your board retreat typically happens sometime around your membership recruiting time. Toward the end is a typical time, so that you've kind of got things going. Your board retreat could also be at the end of your cycle, meaning you've just done your annual awards and you're just starting to recruit. Often there's a changing of the guard there. And so there are people who do a strategic planning session at that point. Number one, of course, your plan should be grounded in the Impact 100 model. And you need leadership in this. Sometimes a board will have a feeling that says, we just want to keep the status quo. Our plan right now, we grew too fast, or we've been so busy since our launch. Now it's time for us to go back and button up all of our processes. If that big picture is where you believe your chapter has to go, your board retreat will be the time that each leader kind of talks about what's needed in order to achieve that outcome. So the outcome of your strategic plan is to shore up your processes, to increase your governance. You may have someone come in who can help guide you. Hey, don't forget this, and help you lead that. I also think that there's a lot that your local leadership can do without necessarily bringing someone from the outside. I know this is several years ago, Metro Detroit, they executed a strategic plan, and the woman who walked them through was a member. I don't recall anymore if she was on the board at the time, but she was a member, she was a leader, she fully understood the model, and she was good at strategic planning. She gave her services pro bono to her own chapter. And at that point, I think when we shared it on a chapter chat, a couple of other chapters said, would you do it for us? And I think she helped some at a discounted rate. And others, the Detroit chapter at that time sort of shared, this is what we did, and this is the outcome, as kind of a framework. So as you think about your plan at a high level, kind of think about what you want to do. Oftentimes it's fund all five, or it's we really have to focus especially on getting more grant applications, whatever it might be. Look at it both as a big picture and also look at it specific to your chapter. Otherwise, a strategic plan, it can often, take on a life of its own. And you've got volunteers that are already working really hard. And so I will rest on that note. Does anybody have anything they want to add in terms of strategic planning? Okay. All right. Grants. We had only a couple of grants process questions that came through. One of them was, are there best practice tips for training members that are reading grant applications? You want to be able to give them a sample application that's redacted so that, or that's just not a real organization that someone has made up for you, to walk them through if a nonprofit was applying for your grant using your grant application, and really train them first on what the nonprofit is being asked to provide and why. Because the why behind that documentation is critical. Plenty of our members have a lot of financial services background and training, and they are not the least bit intimidated by the budgets that come in, as well as some of the financial documentation. But some are on the opposite end of the spectrum. They want to read the narrative and see if the story resonates with them, but it's much harder for them to get their grip on the numbers. And so you want to make sure that you have both represented, and that you train them on the outcome of, it might be a grant that another chapter didn't push through because there was a critical piece of information missing. It could be almost anything, but the closer you get to your actual application with a on your grants platform, the easier it will be. Typically the process goes, if you do, I'm going to skip the LOI process for a moment. So the application comes in, they get distributed through your 5 focus areas, and your team has been trained, and they sign off on they don't have a conflict, and they're going to be loyal to the practice. They are ready to start that conversation. They will review, debate the merits, start asking some questions, start eliminating things in terms of, gosh, this doesn't meet the criteria, so they won't move forward. And as they narrow the field, they then bring in financial oversight. There are some chapters that do it the opposite way. Financial oversight looks at everything before it goes. That's tough on a lot of financial services people. And so it's much more common for you to kind of identify the ones that you believe are going to move forward to finalist status, and then your financial review team has fewer applications they have to look at which point they will say, nope, this one won't move forward, or this one will move forward, but I want to be on the site visit because I have a specific group of questions I want to ask to determine whether I'm comfortable or not comfortable. And so the financial piece typically comes last. And then each focus area, of course, names their finalist, and you know the rest from there. And so making sure your members understand it. And the other piece is your focus area chair or your grant review chair. She needs to also moderate the conversation. You know, everyone gets an equal voice and an equal vote. And in some group dynamics, you might have 1 or 2 people who are talking all the time. And you might have or the other side, you might have a lot of conversation, but 1 or 2 people are kind of quiet. And so your grant review chair, really part of that role is to make sure that everyone is comfortable expressing their opinion, that everyone is comfortable contributing, regardless of how much experience they have reviewing an application, with also being mindful that no one is biased in one way or another. And so that is an important role of your chair, and keeping the conversation going, asking the right questions, and making sure that the group conversation goes as it should. Anybody who'd like to add to that? All right, y'all. For chapters using LOIs, what does it contain? That is an interesting story, because this is one of those things that our ambassadors will be able to answer for us. So anecdotally, An LOI typically is a high level that says roughly, we have this idea, we'd like to do this thing in this kind of way, and we think that the results are going to be this. Some chapters include some financial, just sort of basic rough financial, and certainly check the box of you've got to be a 501c3. So like you're asking them questions. They might not, depending on the chapter, they might not have to upload their proof that they are a 501c3 in your defined geography. But these are, they're typically broad questions that allow your focus area committees to be looking at those LOIs and assessing, are they aligned with what we would typically fund? My guidance, I'm of two minds about an LOI. So I don't know off the top of my head how many chapters use one and how many don't, but we'll find that out soon. Most chapters use LOIs because they think it's easier for the nonprofits to only submit a little bit of information if they're not going to move forward. And I respect that. I can understand that. The other side of it is, if they submit the whole application, yes, it's more work, but it is also more people in the community, more Impact 100 members who get to learn about your program or progress, or project if they have the whole application up front. So whichever way you do it is perfectly fine. I know that I'm looking at chapters who use an LOI. So other than what I've said, are there other things that you put in your LOI or you don't that you think are important for the group to learn? Joni?
We make sure that in the LOI, we talk about this before they even fill one out. It's on our website. We make sure they understand the kinds of things that we are not going to fund. Capital campaigns, religious or political affiliated groups, things like that, just so that there's no reason for them to put the effort forth into asking if they've got something in mind that we aren't going to fund.
Very good. Yeah, the eligibility requirements are key. Thank you for bringing that up. Absolutely. All right, Denise.
We got 110 LOIs this year, and there's no way we could have gone through 100 grant applications. So the LOI really helps us streamline down to what we think the biggest impact project ideas are, and then we go through a smaller number of grant applications. But with the new administration, the nonprofits are in a panic and they're just throwing ideas out there, some of which are not very well thought through.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Very good point. Yep. Hi, Betsy.
Hi. Just a quick question. We've never used an LOI. I'm with Jersey Coast, and we use an eligibility screener for
Same thing.
but we don't ask anything about the project. It's purely whether it has the right operating budget and whether it meets our nonprofit 501c3 criteria. But when you do the LOIs, who reviews the LOIs to narrow them down? Is it part of your GRCs or
it should be in
just a
your grant
subcommittee?
review team? That's where it should happen because you want your members to be the ones who decide, not your leadership.
Your board. So in that way, so we don't form our grant committees. We'll get our eligibilities underway now, and then we will have applications come in mid-May, and our grant review teams get involved for the summer. It would be a much longer process then. You form the teams in the very beginning of the process.
Well, it depends. That's a big gap between when your LOI, like when your eligibility or your LOIs would start. I think LOIs are typically not that far separated from when your grant review teams would be there anyway.
So you don't give the nonprofits time. How long do you give them to work on the application after the LOI?
They still have maybe 4 weeks.
Okay.
Is that, Denise, you still have your hand up? Are you, what's the space between your LOI and your application?
About 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, forgot to lower my hand.
That's okay. That works. Anything else on that?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Awesome.
I was
Okay.
just going to mention, I put it in the chat, our grants committee, the board members evaluate the LOIs as they come in. Ours are due March 31st. The grant application is due July 1st.
Oh,
So if they have an
that's a
approved
long time.
LOI, then we send it. We also do the grant workshops and offer those to the ones who have an approved LOI. And at that point, they've seen the link to the application. They should have, if they want to do well, they should have looked at the application to see what we're asking for and brought any questions to the workshop where we actually go over the application, trying to make it as easy as possible for them to create an application that can be successful. We are not like San Francisco. Right now we have 3 and our deadline is the end of the month. We're always, a little slow for them to come in. Last year we had 51 and that's the most we've ever had. But we're a much smaller population, so fewer nonprofits.
Right. Very good. All right. All right. Membership. We do have a couple of membership questions. This question is, what do some other chapters do to help retain first and second year members? So whether your chapter has been around for 25 years or whether your chapter has been around for just a few, retaining your current members or your prior members is always really, really important. And so part of what I will say is, there's so much I could say about this. There are chapters, I know SRQ does a really good job with this, where they have what they call an ambassador program, not to be confused with the global ambassador program. SRQ has members who are assigned to new members, and or they will have members who are assigned to existing, so that that ambassador might have a little covey of members that they stay with, and they will communicate and touch base and say, hey, I'm going to go to this, meet the finalist event, or I'm going to go to this other event where we learn about a nonprofit grantee from a prior year. Do you want to meet me? Do you want to get coffee before so we can walk in together?
Robin.
Trying to make it easy to make our new members or even existing members feel more welcome, so that they aren't walking into a room where you feel like everybody else knows each other and you don't. And so there are those ambassador programs. We also try really hard to make sure that they get a personal touch. Now, I don't see anybody on the call, forgive me, but I don't see anybody on the call from Little Traverse Bay. Little Traverse Bay, when you join in their relatively new chapter, when you join, the president, who's still the founding president, sends a personal note thanking you for joining or renewing on Little Traverse Bay stationery. And then the membership recruitment chair also on her own stationery sends another note saying how happy they are that this member has joined or renewed. Now, I'm going to tell you, these women must spend a lot of time with a pen in hand writing these notes, because they are handwritten and they are not short. And it is not a note card that says, thanks for joining. It is a note card that simply has the logo and the name of the chapter on the front, and you open it up and it has something else. They handwrite those notes. A handwritten note goes a really long way for people to feel connected. And the fact that more than one member of the leadership team sends a note is something that will stay with you. And so I would definitely be considering what are the touch points that are going to make people feel, we always say things like every member matters and, you're important, and we mean it. Those are real. But it also, how do you convey that besides saying it? And one of the ways you do it is to have a highly personal touch point. One of the challenges that a lot of chapters have, especially if you've been around for a while, is that, one aspect of the model that's very, very popular is this notion that members can design their own experiences. And so if I design my own experience and my design is I'm not going to get involved, like I'm busy, I'm going to write my check and I'm going to vote and I'm going to maybe show up at the annual award ceremony, maybe not, then it's very hard for you as a leadership team to feel like, oh my goodness, we haven't heard anything from this person. Who knows they're on the board? Nobody knows they're on the board. What do we do if we want to retain? And so there is a fine line in terms of how many emails and how many text messages. But sending a note, a handwritten note, it might be something that might work for some of you. I also know that Pensacola they don't use it for this purpose, but they use a program called SlyDial. And typically they only use it once a year either at the end of membership recruiting, like to everyone who is a former, like a lapsed member who has not rejoined for the year. Your phone rings once and you couldn't answer it. Like even if you were looking at your phone, you cannot answer it. It goes straight to voicemail, and the voicemail is a uniform recorded message that says, hey, this is the president or the membership chair or whoever. And, our membership deadline is in 3 days and we really hope you'll renew, and we blah, blah, blah. It tells the whole story. That kind of a personal touch can be effective. But I don't know. I grew up write a handwritten note. I'm still a big writer of handwritten notes myself. So I kind of land there. But whatever the touch points you have and whatever the ways that you can engage them, I caution you all not to create a whole bunch of events to keep your members entertained, or, it just starts to take on a life of its own, and you'll find your board is spending so much time and money and effort on these events that ends up almost becoming like a monster that is never full. And I'm seeing some head nods where like, oh, now they're used to these activities. So you got to do these activities, but then someone went to an activity and they didn't like it. And so because they didn't like it, now they aren't going to re-up or whatever the case. So to me, too many events, it's just high risk and low reward. There's a much better chance of things going sideways with a lot of social events than it really helping you. And so I would be super cautious about that. Anybody want to add anything about member engagement or renewal or retention? Okay. After recruiting season is over and chapters are starting, grant applications, what's best practice for recruiting? Every chapter kind of develops their own rhythm on how soon they start recruiting. I'm going to use Little Traverse Bay as an example because they are an outlier. Little Traverse Bay literally recruits 12 months out of the year. They have recruiting events every single month, all year round. Now, that does not change all the work that they're doing in the present moment going through the grant cycle. So as you're going through the Impact 100 cycle, they are actively recruiting. Their membership deadline is December 31st, and they make their announcement on January 1st. Most people, I encourage, or most chapters, I encourage, give yourself like 3 weeks between your cutoff day and your announcement. But I think because they're actively recruiting all the time, it just simply makes more sense for them to do it that way. That is the extreme. Others, they feel like they are just so tired of inundating their social media feeds and their newsletters and their conversations and constantly recruiting that once once the grant process is starting and your membership has closed, many will wait before they take up recruiting again. It's really, that kind of becomes a community choice. What your leadership, of course, has an appetite for, first and foremost, but also how receptive is your community to having ongoing recruiting. If they're receptive, if your leadership team is up for it, by all means. If it feels like it's just going to get, it's going to sort of get mixed up in the noise of everything else happening and sort of lost, then I would say you might want to have a more defined recruiting period. Generally speaking, recruiting starts very quietly prior to your annual award celebration. The official kickoff of your recruiting season should happen at your annual award celebration, because in that moment, when your finalists have spoken, your members have voted, but we don't know yet who's getting the grant, you're technically at 0 members. And so now you're looking ahead. And that is when we make a much more vocal plea for all of these finalists were amazing. Wouldn't it be great if next year we could give an additional grant? We can't do it without you, etc. And that's what launches you in your next leadership push. Anybody to add? Okay. Now we have a couple more I only have 10 more minutes, my word. So one question was, has anyone ever reopened membership to let more people in? This particular chapter, their membership deadline is December 31st, but their membership director is asking if we could reopen members before the annual award celebration and let them vote. I would give you a very strong, I don't think that's a good idea. Now, the way the model is designed, you're supposed to have membership recruiting for a finite period of time. It cuts off, you do your big reveal. So I'll give you the Cincinnati timeline. Membership closed in May. We had 123 women. We announced shortly thereafter that we were giving away $123,000. We got grant applications for that amount. And then we came up with 5 finalists, and in September we voted and we gave the money away. It is meant to be a cycle that goes membership first, then grants, review, meet the finalist, and then annual awards. The reason we do it that way is so members have the opportunity to get involved on the grant review side. That is the most important work any member can do. If you want them to learn about their community, to better understand what we do, to make friendships, to understand the dynamics that are facing your community members, your neighbors, your friends, and the nonprofits who serve them, that is the right thing. Now, there are a handful of chapters in Florida that sort of do it all at the same time. Members can join until late while they're also reviewing grant applications. This timeline can get very complicated. There have been circumstances where when everything happens at the same time, a chapter might only have 4 finalists and they only have 400 members. The members aren't voting anything at the end. And so we end up kind of with a convoluted way of trying to allow the members to vote. So it can be a very slippery slope to do everything on top of each other. That being said, chapters do it. And they do it well, and their members are accustomed to it. Since this chapter doesn't typically operate that way, I would simply allow new members are joining for 2027, and maybe they're allowed to go to your annual award celebration, but not vote. Because that way you're getting a running start on your 2027 membership. Allowing them at the last minute to be able to join is complicated. The other thing that it does, which if you give the consolation prize grants, which I don't encourage, but I know many of you do. In other words, where a certain number of grantees get 100,000 and then the other finalists get a smaller dollar amount. If, for example, you had 330 members, 3 would get 100,000. The remaining 2 finalists would get 15,000 each, as some people call it a merit award. So if you do that, I guess changing the number doesn't matter as much, but I really think you're starting a practice that will, in fact, be a very difficult thing to change in the future. And I don't think there's enough gain in letting people who join this late vote. You can let them attend, but I don't think making them voting members is the appropriate move on that. And then there is another question about a Next Gen program and trying to connect with other chapters who have Next Gen. I can tell you that Owensboro has Next Gen, New York City has Next Gen, Impact Grants Chicago has Next Gen. Who am I missing, Jody? Well, Sydney, Australia. Oh, Sacramento. Do you have it also? Hi, Lisa. Thank you.
Austin, Texas.
Oh, yeah. Austin does, as does Sydney, Australia. And we're going to be having an Impact Academy Live coming up soon to talk about what Sydney is doing, because it's remarkable. But so those are the ones who are doing it. And let's see, are we sure? I feel like I'm missing one other, but I can't think who it is. Oh, Joni? You all are doing it too. Okay, thank you. It's so Northwest Florida. Awesome. Okay. I am almost done. Oh, topics for social events. I think I kind of already covered that. We don't really want to do social events. Whatever you do, make sure it's mission focused. If you're going to gather people together, you want to hear from a past grantee, you want it to be mission focused, but I think we've already gone through that. How do you spread the word about your new chapter, and what's the best way to recruit volunteers? I'm going to start with the volunteers. Some of the best ways to recruit volunteers is to make sure that you are creating volunteer opportunities that are clear, that are defined, and that are realistic. So you may want to do something along the lines of, we've got these that are done in a day. So like for events, anytime we have an event, if you want to volunteer, you can set up. Or it's amazing how many chapters. I want to be at one of these chapters that have this like baking crew. They bake cookies or cupcakes or brownies or cake. I'm like, I want to go to those meetings. And so there are women who might not volunteer to do a lot of things, but their love language is baking, and so they will often volunteer to do it done in a day. Yep, I'll bring 50 cupcakes, or I'll bring 3 dozen cookies or whatever the case may be. Or I'll bring wine and donate it, or soft drinks or what have you. So around events, it's very easy to get it done in a day. Come help us set up. Come help us do this. There are also done in a day things like help us to stuff the packets for the big reveal or for the annual award celebration, whatever the case. There may also be jobs that people can do from home, like you can do social media from home, or you can create, a template for the newsletter, or you can build content in Canva that can be used. So think about the skills, and then in other ways you can, the biggest ways you get volunteers is for the grant review teams. And so on a scale of like biggest commitment, leadership, second biggest, grant review team, and then have these lesser degrees. It allows women to participate and feel like they're involved at a level that is attainable for them. And then it's publicizing it often. It's personal invitations. If somebody knows that Lisa Lang is an excellent baker, then they might say, Lisa, I know you don't currently serve on the board. I know Lisa Lang does serve on the board, but when she no longer does, wouldn't it be great if you could do it done in a day by bringing, a pastry or a, punch or whatever it is. So sometimes it's personal invitations, and sometimes it's announcing it in your newsletter. The perfect time for getting volunteers is at your big reveal. So your big reveal is when you tell the world how many members you have. And remember, it's often meant to be a surprise to your membership as well as to the community. And so it's one of your biggest events of getting people there. And I recommend when you plan that you set up tables kind of like at a trade show that represent each one of your focus area committees, as well as your marketing committee, your membership committee, your events committee, so that women can come around and say, well, what does it entail, and be able to ask questions. We are at the top of the hour and we are running out of time. So I will say for now, I want to be very respectful. If you have to hop, please do. I will spend a little bit of time about how to spread the word on our new chapter or your existing chapter to gain traction. Now, if you have to hop, we do have this recorded. It will go into Academy under a community forum called Chapter Chats. So you can go back and listen. But if you can stay, I'm going to spend a little time to answer this question. The best way to spread the word is think about all the ways that people in your community learn things. So if you have a local radio station, talk radio, they've got to fill a lot of hours, and you want to get on those shows. Get on the shows, whether it's your public television, local or public radio station, whether it is your regular format radio. Very often they have morning shows or noon shows or on the drive home shows that include a lot of interviews and talking. Critically important. And a very easy lift. It's usually very easy to get on local radio. In some cases, you can do it remotely, but it's always best if you can do it in the studio. And so that's low-hanging fruit. Other low-hanging fruit are things like your community calendar. Maybe your United Way has a community calendar. Your chamber might have a community calendar. You want to be sure that your public membership recruiting events are on the calendar. If you have an information session that says, come learn about Impact 100 Sacramento, come learn about this new chapter, you can put it on the community calendar to spread the word. You also want to ask United Way, your chamber, Junior League, Zonta, to include it in their newsletter. You can write a newsletter blurb and say, would you please include it? You can ask for their email lists. Very often, if you are a member of the chamber or a member of Zonta or other organization, Rotary, if you get permission for what you're going to send, they will often allow you to either include something in what they send so you don't see their whole list, or in some cases, they simply share the list. You want to make sure that you are inviting members and nonprofits at the same time, because when you are making people aware that your chapter exists, it's critically important that the nonprofits know about you. You know, Joni made a point earlier that they struggle to get applications. If you're super successful and you grow your chapter to 500 members and you can't come up with 10 strong finalists for your members to vote on, that would be a bigger challenge than not being able to give away enough money, right? And so the earlier and the more often you are recruiting your members, or excuse me, your nonprofits to apply, the better. The other thing you want to do is go where women already convene. We have a coffee table book, and it gives stats about Impact 100 that was done in a survey a couple years ago. And the inside cover and the outside cover put a sticker that gives your chapter information, your logo, maybe a QR code that basically says, we're looking for members just like you, and we're looking for nonprofits to apply. Put in your OBGYN's office, your hairdresser, your manicurist, your massage place, your smoothie place, your gym, in the locker room. Put it in places where women already are. Sometimes in a local community, Impact 100 can develop this unearned reputation of being cliquey. Well, if you've got these public invitations out there in all these places, you negate that. When you on a radio program say all are welcome, you negate this idea that you have to know someone or have any certain skills to become a part of it. And so you want to be there. If you live in a community that has a digital billboard by Lamar, you may also be able to have a billboard that says, hey, we're new in town and we want to meet you. You can, for your leadership team, if you're a place that has neighborhoods with grass, you could get a lawn sign saying, I'm a member, or ask me about Impact 100, or something like that. And there are magnets you can put on your car so that if you're in a car community and you're driving a lot, people will know that that it exists, and it might that might help to spread the word. In other words, use every possible avenue. There are chapters who have figured out that one of the community convenings in their area is the local farmers market. And so they have a table at the farmers market that draws people that says, you know, you might be here for your fresh produce, but you can learn about growing something even bigger. And so be creative, think about where other people will be and be there. If you are on a small founding team, once you have your brand, get some swag. You know, make an athletic shirt that you wear to the gym. Wear your name tag. Look at you, swag. You got it all going on, Jody. But that's how you spread the word, is you become a walking billboard. One of the things we have, speaking of a walking billboard, is that if right now Jody were in line at the grocery store and someone saw her name tag and her swag on her shirt that says Impact 100 Owensboro, and they say, what is that? We have a video series that you can say to the person, hey, text Impact 100 to this number, 53123. Now, that is a frictionless way for a stranger to understand what the Impact 100 model is. And it is a series of 6 videos. It is free. It's frictionless in the sense that we're not saying subscribe to our newsletter or give me your phone number and I'll invite you or give me your email. You're simply saying text Impact 100 to this number. A series of 6 videos they'll be prompted to complete that explains in detail how the model works. That's half the battle. In fact, at all of your membership recruiting events, having that available so that people, not while they're listening to you, but perhaps as part of your invitation or as a thank you for coming. If you want to learn more about the model, here it is. And so that may be helpful as well. All right, we've gone 8 minutes past the top of the hour, and I really want to be mindful. Thank you all for hanging in with me. Any closing words? Danny, I got your note. Thank you so much. I am very grateful. So I thank you. Anybody else have anything for the good of the cause? And then I will let you all go. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We will see you next month, I hope. And until then, I hope the luck of the Irish is with you. And I thank you so much. Take care and have a really good day. Bye.